Hello, Choden. Thanks for your time. We are here in Edinburgh and we are so interested in this talk. I would like to say, above all, it's not provoking or being curious, it's just interest because it's such an interesting topic. And I think really that we should know more about you and about the whole aim you have being this Buddhist monk. I know that you are from South Africa and you are a lawyer. So you made quite a shift. Could you tell us how this happened or what was the trigger, inner, outer triggers, or what was the point where you said, now I leave my lawyer practice?
Yeah, it was a long time ago now. I mean, about almost 30 years ago. I was living in Cape Town in South Africa, and I was attending law school. And one of the teachers, professors, was a professor of criminology. And he one day gave a talk on Buddhism outside of the university. And I went along to this talk, and I was so struck by the way he was talking about Buddhism and about working with the mind and transforming the mind. And I remember thinking, this is what I'm interested in, not law, But I'd almost finished my law degree, so I thought I'd better finish. My father had paid for it.
Yes.
So to make the old man happy, I completed it. But I then made a very strong connection with this person called Rob Nairn and started learning meditation and going on retreats. So it was just something that kind of happened. And I then completed my law studies, got admitted as a solicitor.
Ah, really?
Yeah,
So
and
you worked as a lawyer?
I worked for a couple of years, just to get my full professional qualification. But then once I did that, I just left the country and came to Scotland and didn't go back. So I just left my law career and studied and practiced Buddhism and then did a 3-year retreat, which was very intense. And then after that, it was kind of, I wasn't going to go back to law.
Never ever. Good choice then, the right choice. What should we imagine having these 3 years of, I don't know, training, education to be a monk? You live in a monastery?
Yeah, the 3-year retreat was in the monastery, but not everybody did it. It was a small group of people we lived in a kind of cloistered, which meant a sort of very clearly demarcated area for 3 years and never left. And during that time, we were practicing many hours a day, studying, but mainly meditating, from early in the morning to late at night. And we lived in kind of little rooms with meditation boxes, and we actually slept in the box. It was a big rectangular box, and you'd sleep in the box, and it was a very 24/7 all-consuming activity. So I did that for 3 years, and there were about 20 of us doing it. So it was from different countries. Yeah.
Why, I just ask, why so long and why so strict? And what's the purpose? What's the benefit of this?
It's a good question. In retrospect, I'm not sure. It definitely was very powerful. And I think the reason why it was 3 years was because in Tibet they had a traditional 3-year retreat system of training people who had been monks for quite a long time. So it was a kind of traditional thing imported from Tibet. I think probably looking back, it didn't really work for modern Westerners. It might have worked in Tibet of last century, but for us, it was very intense, I think we were very idealistic. We thought, okay, we do the 3 years and then we get enlightened. So maybe if you're going to get enlightened, 3 years isn't long, but none of us got enlightened. I think most of us struggled. A lot of people had psychological problems and
Yeah, that's also, sorry to interrupt, that's also a very striking aspect of the whole thing, because you know how we Westerners are influenced now, and everybody is talking about longevity, mindfulness, awareness, and all this stuff, and benefits never ending. But there might also be people, for example, with mental issues. They do not benefit, I imagine. And it's not for everybody. As a 3 years, like you describe it, never ever for me. It's I think it's so rigid, so harsh, so
I agree. I agree now looking back, but at the time I thought differently. It reminded me of young men going to war.
yes,
They
definitely.
go to war and they think, they sing and it's great, we go, then they end up in the trenches like the First World War. And this thing felt like being in the trenches, it was really intense. And then you think differently about it. Because we were practicing all the time. Hey? And when you meditate like that, you run into deep-rooted psychological, emotional stuff from the past coming up. And I think a lot of the Tibetan teachers didn't realize that us Westerners carried so much trauma and all kinds of stuff. So, it was quite a tough ride. Hey?
Super
It was
tough
quite a tough
ride.
ride.
And
It really was.
and it could go wrong. Not,
Yeah,
I don't speak of you, but there are people it could go wrong. And
sure.
it's like, I think, like hypnosis, for example, it can go wrong, and you never know. So you are aware of that. And also a point, I think, what about sports or other things? You just meditate 3 years, or you do some sports, or
Physical activity, you mean?
yes.
It wasn't just literally meditating all the time, sitting down. We did do a kind of activity called prostration, which is quite vigorous. It's a bit like sun salutation in yoga, where you go like this and you stretch out on the ground and get up. And we did like 100,000 of them, which was quite vigorous. On
It's
this floor.
war. It's war.
It was a bit like, it reminded me a bit like of the army, the spiritual army, we did some very physical kind of yoga, Kundalini yoga stuff, which was quite physical and strong.
So there was a
There
physical
was
part.
a physical part, yeah.
And still sticking to these 3 years, but then we leave them. Are these monks all vegetarians?
No, I mean, in the Tibetan tradition, people eat meat. I mean, less so now, but I remember on that retreat, sometimes people would normally we had vegetarian food, but every now and again somebody would sponsor a meal and they would cook like lamb or meat, And we all loved it because you got it was such a, I don't know, kind of grounding thing, because otherwise we were just eating vegetarian food. So we did eat some meat, yeah.
So we leave this part.
Okay.
We have also discussed, I'm from Switzerland, and we have Catholics, we have Benedictines, we have everything. And that's a totally different thing. Some parts are similar, some are really different. But being a monk or a nun is always living in a monastery or a nunnery, or detached from society. And there is, for me, sort of a selfish part in it. You just take yourself out of everything, and living in a monastery is a safe place. And even I looked at the statistics. Monks and nuns live longer,
Really?
really, because they have
Yeah.
less stress.
Yeah.
They're cared for. And what do you think?
I agree, you know. I don't, I'm a different kind of monk.
Yeah, that's clear.
You know, I don't just stay in the monastery. Some of the monks just stay in the monastery. You'll see when you go to Samuling, they just do jobs there and they lead prayers and they
That's
just
what I mean.
live in the monastery and it's very safe and simple. You know, there's no harm in that. I mean, I think some people who become monks in the West often have different issues, you know, mental health issues or addiction issues, and that's a way of um, finding stability, you know. But in my case, I travel and teach a lot, you know.
That's where I'm aiming
Yeah,
at,
yeah.
because you made this, you left, and you have an impact.
Mm,
In a monastery, there's no impact for society or others, and you left, and you are teaching, and you founded the Mindfulness Association.
yeah, I co-founded it. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
tell us about this project.
yeah. So I think the idea about being a monk, going back to what you asked, is you keep that. You know, even when I travel around, it gives you a certain self-contained space of purity and depth from which to teach. You know, so it can be helpful in this crazy modern world where you pulled out of yourself so much. So, but in terms of the Mindfulness Association, it was founded about 2010, and the idea was to draw on the depth and wisdom of the Tibetan tradition and to offer the teachings in a way that were not dogmatic or religious, but it was like the real wisdom and the methods for anybody, everyday people. So that was the kind of idea. Because Tibetan Buddhism is a bit like Catholicism or the Greek Orthodox Church. It's very rich and complicated. And so we decided, okay, we're going to offer the wisdom, the jewels to anybody. And they don't have, and so, and it's worked really well, actually. And I do a lot of my teaching coming out of the more mindfulness approach. And I think it really works well for modern people because a lot of people don't want to buy into a religious tradition and take on board all kinds of stuff, you know. So that was the reason for setting it up. Um, yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing the last 12, 15 years is teaching mindfulness.
And mindfulness, as you said, just mindfulness for everyday people,
Yeah.
not because take us three. We are everyday people. We have our lives, we have our professions, we have our relationships, friends, and where to put in all this meditating and mindfulness, and it's so tight. You have to get up earlier to meditate an hour, and it's not always possible. So how do you give advice for these everyday people?
I think I don't think one needs to necessarily meditate for an hour every
Yeah,
day.
but
You can do maybe even 20 minutes or 30 minutes if you can. But I think the most important thing is to bring the awareness into your life, you know? So the sitting can help, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is can we cultivate self awareness, not be constantly pulled into negative thinking? Can we learn to accept all the different parts of ourselves? Can we give ourselves some kindness? These are the things that are really
these are
important.
the
Kind
difficult stuff.
self-compassion, because people often are so critical of themselves. And that's kind of that's useful for everyday life, you know, to be
Yeah,
more
yeah.
self-contained, aware. Thoughts don't just pull you away, you're more focused on what you're doing. You're cultivating some gratitude for the good things, compassion for the hard things. So it's all about that. And I think that can filter into just the way you live.
Yes.
And it's not, the most important thing isn't sitting for an hour every day by a shrine, you know? It's,
I'm exaggerating,
but I
but
mean,
you know what I mean.
yeah, no, I get you. But the real idea is all of life is your shrine, you know? You know, you try to see life as being sacred, and you relate to people with, I don't know, kind of kindness. That yeah, maybe making all of life your shrine is the real meaning of this stuff, you know? If that makes sense to you in a way.
And I have always this difficulty, awareness and mindfulness.
Yeah.
Help me.
Um, I think mindfulness is paying attention to what you're doing while you're doing it. So you're in the present moment. It's more about attention, okay? Awareness is more a bigger space, you know, awareness is more a bigger space, whereas attention is how we focus awareness, you know? So mindfulness is a bit like training the messenger, which is attention. We're always attending to things to bring it under our control so we're not constantly pulled out of ourselves. And then awareness is more a bigger space you can learn to inhabit, you know? So awareness is a kind of big space, whereas mindfulness is about learning to train our attention not to constantly follow all sorts of things.
And it's more punctual. It's
Yeah.
I'm doing this, I'm mindful on this, and awareness, it's like a lifestyle. Sorry to use this word.
Yeah, it's the words are often used interchangeably, but mindfulness is learning to stay in the present moment with whatever you're doing, you know? Because really life happens in the present moment. It doesn't happen in the past or the future. So if you learn to stay in the present moment, you appreciate more, you're more effective. And when you're in the present moment, you realize, wow, there's a big space to life I can be in. Most people are very like narrow focused, you know? Whereas when you more relaxed into the present is big. You know, there's all kinds of beautiful things we can notice and partake in. Whereas if you look at most people, they're just tunnel visioned, you know?
Yeah.
They're worrying about the future, dwelling on the past. Mindfulness, come into the present, breathe, relax, be curious, and life is a big thing, a wonder we can be part of, something like that, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the difference between mindfulness and awareness.
And your teaching is not ending with this approach to mindfulness, then you do a next step to wisdom or get to know yourself better, not just be on the moment.
So we have four stages. First one is mindfulness, where you're training your attention not to be in the past or the future, but the present. So and when you're in the present, you have a quality of accepting how you are, be curious about what's there. So that's mindfulness. The next one is compassion, which is really learning to be kind to yourself. That's often what so many people need and lack, to self-kindness, you know. And on many of our courses, the self-kindness is the big thing because people are so not kind to themselves, you know.
Yeah,
So
I can relate to that.
so critical, you know, like, and then the self-kindness then becomes also, then we go to kindness for other people. So there's kindness to self, kindness to others.
Compassion for all the others.
Yeah, compassion for self and others. Then the third stage, insight, is trying to understand the habits that rule our life. You know, they're often deep habit patterns and belief systems that are often shaping how we live, how we think, and many people don't see them. But actually, often their whole life can be affected by this. You know, like some people are always trying to please people or be a good girl or a good boy. You know, and so insight looks at the deeper habits that often rule us, you know.
they rule us.
Yeah.
These internal patterns,
Yeah.
we often don't even know we have them, but
Exactly.
just react the same way and then
Yeah.
wondering why this happens again. But we
Exactly,
have
yeah.
these internal patterns, and I think the first step to get to know them, to know I have them,
Yeah.
is really important because we are not aware. And to go back a little bit, why you call it compassion and not empathy?
Yeah, that's a good question. Empathy is, empathy is you get a sense of what somebody else is going through. Maybe I look at you and I get a feeling of what's going on for you, and maybe I sense your suffering or your pain, and that somehow touches me in some way. Compassion is the response after empathy.
Yeah.
So, I really look at you. I mean, I don't know you, but I might get a feeling about something going on for you, and I get a sense of what it's like to be in your shoes. And then compassion is a real a response of loving kindness, care, um, something like that. So empathy is part of compassion, but you need the second one, the response. Otherwise, you can get a kind of overexposure, overexposure to suffering, which can burn you out,
Yeah, compassion is sort of after empathy because
Exactly,
you
yeah.
respond. But when you respond, you enter sort of the suffering of the other, and that's can eat you up.
Exactly.
How you manage that?
The approach actually in Buddhism and what we teach is you don't over empathize. You just do a little bit. Okay. But then you come back to yourself and you focus more on the compassion. You focus more on the loving kindness, the understanding. So you don't stay too long with the empathic stage because that can actually not be so helpful,
For
You can
both.
you can burn your fingers,
Easily.
So so that's the idea. It's always two ways: the empathy and then the response.
I mean, it's not useful for both of them because you don't help really. The suffering is too much for
Yeah, the
both.
suffering can be too much. You got to have some empathy.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just like you got no sense of that person. You got to, I can sense their suffering. Stay there for a little bit and then bring loving kindness in.
Yeah. But it doesn't end there. Somehow, on a certain point, they have to start actions because you have to change the suffering. It doesn't. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
You can see it, you can be kind and everything, but then on a certain point, there needs something to be done.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think the thing is, you can never really, you can do things yourself to change the way you are. It's very hard to actively change somebody else. All you can do is provide them with a very loving, supportive presence,
Yeah.
and maybe have some suggestions. But you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink.
Yes.
So, and there's also a thing which is quite important in mindfulness is not try to fix people, like not try to sort of put them right. It's more like just offer them a very loving, supportive presence. And that helps a lot. And maybe it's really best if people themselves decide how they're going to change.
And mindfulness is without judgment. That's also
Yeah.
an important point, I think,
It is, yeah.
because the other feels that you disagree, and then we have no hope.
Yeah. So the without judgment starts with you. So we have
Dharma?
the mindfulness starts with oneself, where you don't judge the different parts of you. You just hold them in a very kind awareness. Okay. So again, awareness is a bigger thing, and you're really aware what's going on and the different parts of you, and you hold it in a very non-judging kind awareness. Very important. And then with other people too, you sort of get a sense of somebody, and it's very important to not judge people, because for one, they're judging themselves so much anyway. You don't want to add your judge into them. Like
Then you have this circle. Yeah.
yeah. So
Now we are talking about relationships and companions and everything. The Buddhist monks live in celibacy.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But I can't see the point of celibacy, because you're teaching, you are people, you're a role model for other people, and then a huge part, the relationship also to females, or however you want to call it, is not there. You have
Yeah.
no experience. How can you advise a couple when you don't know how difficult it is?
No, that's a good question. I mean, in my case, I had a life before I was a monk.
Yes, that's helpful.
I had quite a number of different relationships, which I can then draw on that experience. Um, in the classic Eastern case in Tibet, people who become monks very young. They would become monks at 5 or 6, and they were just
5 was it?
yeah, really young. They had a totally different understanding. They would be young, they would be monks, and they would be in a monastery, they would go to college, they might do retreat. And yeah, it was just a very different approach. I think their approach was, he wanted some people to be totally immersed in the Buddhist teachings, to be able to offer that. Not like sexuality is wrong, it was just a choice that some people would be completely immersed in that way of life. Because the thinking in the East was, if you met somebody, you liked them, you had sex with them, then you got married to them, you had children, you had a house. So it takes you in a certain way. So the idea was to put all your energy into the path to enlightenment for some people.
But this aspect for me has a strong manipulation point in it, because if you look at a real power couple, what they get, how much energy they get from each other, how much they not push, but they get creativity from discussions, from the relationship.
Yeah.
Apart from having sex and fun and everything, it's just, when you take this away from monks, it's not fair, and makes them, they are manipulated, because there is a huge lack of a human being which should be there. And that's just personal.
I mean, if you want my honest opinion, I don't think the celibacy thing works in the West. I don't think the monastic thing works in the West. It's like a dying breed.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I wonder how come I'm still a monk. And I totally agree with you. I think in the West it's so different, that a lot of us carry kinds of emotional wounding and things we need to work out. And often we need to work it out in relationship through love and connection. So if you just remove that, you remove an area of growth.
Yeah.
So I'm almost arguing the same point as you.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I remember my brother once saying to me, he said, it's your bad luck you're a Tibetan monk and not a Zen monk, because Zen monks aren't celibate and Tibetan monks are. He said,
You can shift.
so for me, it's a dilemma, because I didn't find relationships easy. Well, maybe nobody does.
No, not at all.
Nobody
no,
does.
No. That's not the point. But they are enriching life, and they are
I agree.
really part of human life.
I totally agree. I think that the dilemma for me is whenever I was a monk and because I stopped. I did a 1 year and stopped, generally because I met a woman I liked. Then 3 years, and then I stopped. And then I took life. So I did it 3 times, which you can do. And whenever I took the robes, I found some internal light went on. Something, it touched something in me, which is hard to put into words. And for some reason, when I was a monk, I felt this kind of lit up feeling of happiness and joy, which wasn't dependent on anything.
Undependent on any.
It was it is
That's
the term
interesting.
sukha in Buddhism is you feel a feeling of joy and peace, not dependent on things you have, people you're with, and that's like or relationships. And I felt this kind of happiness. But then when I stopped being a monk, that light went out.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. And often I would lose interest after a while in the relationship, and because I had this monk. I think, in my understanding, maybe in my past life I was a monk in Tibet. I don't know. I've been trying to understand it for a long time. So there was something special about it that I can only talk about for myself. I wouldn't generalize for other people. Like some internal light went on that was not there when I wasn't a monk. That's why I stay as a monk.
Yeah, obviously there must be a reason.
I mean, I don't need to be a monk. I can still teach my stuff as a layperson, So, yeah. But I agree that for most people, the celibacy doesn't work, and they may be monks for a couple of years and then stop because they can't sustain it, and they're drawn to have relationships, and that's okay,
It's normal.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But staying in your life, you obviously have chosen teaching. And I was imagining how you live. We have professions, and we have a professional life, and we have a private life. But for you, it's obviously almost the same, because you're teaching, and in private life, you continue being a monk. Or you have the feeling that you have 2 lives, like everybody else. Not 2 lives, just a part of life which is exclusively for profession and exclusively for family. You have no borders there.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in some kind of way, you're always in the same space, Yeah, you're always in the same kind of space, the kind of monk space. That's when things are really going well, it feels great because you're always in the zone a bit, and you're just in that same zone, and you're teaching out of that, but sometimes other parts of oneself can come through, loneliness or yearning for connection or wanting to do this or that. So. Yeah, I get what you're saying. In a way, the outfit, kind of a bit defines you, a bit like a uniform. So, a bit like a policeman, and you always got your uniform on, and you never take it off or something.
Another question: why you have to wear your clothes?
I think it's a reminder to yourself to maintain awareness and kindness. Because if you're wearing this kind of outfit, you're not going to be sort of shouting and carrying on and swearing because you'll think, oh my God, people are going to think badly of me. There's something about the outfit that encourages a certain presence of awareness and dignity or something.
For yourself.
For you. And more so in the East than the West. In the East, people would revere monks, and they would sort of go like this when monks came past. And so you would have a certain role for other people who saw monks as representatives of the Buddhist teachings. And
yeah, but here in the West?
Not at all. I mean, people often, I don't always wear this, because it's too much. If I walk around Edinburgh all the time wearing this, it's like people look at me and, I mean, often in a nice way. They smile at me and they often say, "Are you a monk?" And I say, "Yeah." And they say, "Wow, I've never met a monk." And I often shake my hand, which is kind of sweet,
It's sweet, but it's also in their Poor guy, he's alone all his life. It's it has two sides.
It has, yeah. But sometimes when I'm in the city, I don't always wear the robes. I just wear ordinary clothes, and that's okay. The main thing is the inner commitment and the vows, not the outfit. The outfit is more for when you are doing ceremonies or doing interviews like this or something like that.
Thanks for wearing that.
Yeah.
Now we will do a walk afterwards because I would like to catch that feeling how it is when you're tall and how people react. It's important because you have to confront this every day.
Yeah. I remember once, because I travel a lot, and I was in Germany with a friend and we were walking to have dinner somewhere. And they said, "Why is everybody looking at us?" They said, "Oh, it's because of you."
Yeah, of course. I wonder.
So,
So you input this teaching, and you have also a connection to Aberdeen University.
yeah, we've had a long collaboration with them going back to about 2011, where we started a Master of Science in Mindfulness.
That exists an official university.
Official postgraduate Master of Science in Mindfulness. And it started in 2011, and it's had a lot of interest. I mean, a lot of people signed up for it, and because there were some others too. In Oxford University's got one, and there's one in Wales called Bangor, and I think our one had compassion in, which made it distinctive. We taught both mindfulness and compassion.
The further step.
Yeah, and we also taught insight. So we taught 3 steps, whereas most places just taught regular mindfulness. And yeah, a lot of psychologists, social workers, educational people, business people, a lot of people have done this degree. It's it's been a real success over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question. Who wants a master in mindfulness? It's psychologists, and everybody could use it to deal with this.
I think people do it partly for themselves and partly because in psychology now people draw a lot on mindfulness. Social work too. A lot of them find a way that mindfulness benefits their professional life and it benefits themselves. Those 2 things. So yeah.
And talking about university and getting this master, one of my usual questions is always, because we have often people interviewing, they are really exceptional in their field, and then they get all these people questioning, what do you give me an advice? What should I do? What do you say?
If you ask me, what's the question?
If I ask you, sometimes I feel a little bit distracted and have too much, and how could I go to a calm path? How do I get more mindfulness?
Um, I would say to first see this life as being very precious and a very precious thing and a thing that quickly goes by.
Very quick.
That's very strong in Buddhism. This life is very precious and quickly goes. So see if you can wake up in the morning with a real wish to live this day to the fullest. And in order to live this day to the fullest, you need to be in the present. You can't be worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. So see if you can try to be in the present moment. And for one, treat yourself with respect and kindness, because it's not easy for anybody to be themselves, actually. It actually is hard to be in your own skin. So be kind to this person that you are, because many things have shaped you, and see if you can have gratitude for the little things, the small things. And the little things actually are the most important things, like, I don't know, whatever it might be, your little cat or dog, or walking by a river and the sun is shining and enjoying your cup of coffee and really appreciating your connection with your loved one before you start having an issue about something. So the small things, I would suggest that. Nothing too fancy, but something along those lines.
Good. And then looking forward, not in the moment, you have sort of a vision or utopia for yourself, how to go on. Where are you in 5 years? What would you like? And then for all of us?
For 5 years down the line, for one, I hope we can get this place near Glasgow. It's a beautiful location, and set up this little Buddhist community, which will be a wonderful place for people to come just outside the city to recharge, practice mindfulness. Both for myself, I'd like to be there, and for other people. Myself, 5 years down the line, maybe just doing what I'm doing now, You know what I mean? Like, that's just doing what I'm doing now. I don't have an ambition to become famous too much, or fame. That doesn't necessarily help, makes it complicated.
Good aspect. Makes it. Why being famous? It's complicated.
Yeah, I know. So I think just continuing as I am now, actually. That kind of is part of the mindfulness kind of thing, not something totally different in 5 years.
Just moving.
Maybe moving a bit less. I'm traveling too much, maybe traveling a bit less, being in one place, having more people come to that one place rather than me flying to other places,
And for all of us, world is quite.
Yeah. That's a hard one, because right now, looking at the world and the leaders we've got and what's going on in the Middle East and in Ukraine, it's troubling,
Yeah.
Very, very troubling. It's really hard to know what to say about the world. Maybe you need enough people who take care of this earth, the environment, that's so important, because that's been more and more pushed to the side. People who really value compassion for themselves and other people and the environment and other life forms. That if we can have a kind of compassion that's not restricted by tribalism. Human beings are very tribal, Tribalism is very destructive, The Middle East is a classic example. A compassion beyond tribalism, where we can look after others who are just like ourselves, other life forms, the environment. Maybe that is a direction we just have to go in. If we don't go in that direction, I don't know where it goes. Right now, it's not looking that promising,
Not at all.
It's not that promising at all, but yeah, that's all I can say,
Thanks a lot, Choden.
Yeah,
This
sure.
was really, really an inspiring talk. Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm pleased.
And now we go for the walk.